Hey everyone, I'm Alex.
And I'm Kirsten.
Tonight we're talking about a kidnapping and a murder.
That we are.
Tell us about it.
Okay, so the year is 1927 in Los Angeles, California. We're going to be talking about the Parker family, which consisted of two twin girls named Marion and Marjorie Parker, and their parents Geraldine and Perry Parker. So in 1927, the two twin girls are 12 years old, and they're attending junior high at Mount Vernon Junior High School on 17th Street in Los Angeles. So Perry Parker was the chief clerk at the Los Angeles First National Trust and Savings Bank. The family was said to be well off financially. On December 15th, 1927, the junior high was having Christmas celebrations when a man came to pick up one of the girls. Mary Holt was working in the school, and it seems like she's like the secretary, but it's not clear if she's a secretary or just a teacher in this story, but she's in the office and this is the person who they're talking to. Mary Holt was working in the school and he asked her for one of the girls. He said that his boss, Perry Parker, was in a terrible automobile accident. At first, this struck Mary as strange because why would Perry only want one of his daughters if he was in a terrible accident? Mm-hmm. The man continued on that Perry Parker only wanted one of his daughters, the youngest one, which again was odd because they're twins. So one is technically older by a couple minutes, but still odd.
Yeah.
Mary's still confused by his request, and he says, I want the smaller one. And one is slightly smaller in pictures.
He doesn't even know which one it is.
No.
Obviously, this is like some pervert, right?
Potentially. My thing is, and if you look at pictures, one is slightly shorter than the other.
Yeah.
But they're both.
These are
yeah.
specific requests, and he doesn't know the right name.
Yeah, exactly. So Mary hesitated. So the man said, I'm an employee of the quote, sorry. Mary hesitated. So the man said, quote, I'm an employee of the bank where Mr. Parker is the chief clerk. And if there's any doubt in your mind, here's the bank's telephone number. You may call there. So
okay.
Yeah.
First off, you don't call the telephone number the person gives you when they're the ones you have to verify.
Mary ended up believing him that he's telling the truth. So she ends up calling for Marion to be pulled out of class. Mm-hmm. So, and as Marion walked away with the strange man to his car, Marjorie saw her out the window. She later tells police that she doesn't recognize the man, but she does go on to describe him as being white, 25 to 30 years old, with dark wavy hair. When Marjorie returns home that day, her mother asks her where Marion is. So clearly there had not been any accident, and Marion had been kidnapped by the man who no one could identify at this point.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to assume, I know it's the 20s.
Yeah.
But a school would have a phone, right?
Yeah, I would assume so.
And the well-off banker people would have a phone.
Oh, yeah, they do. They have a phone later in the story.
Yeah. I know we have policies now. You got to be on a pickup list and all those things, but aren't those kind of common sense things? Aren't they obvious things that you don't let a kid go with just anyone that says whatever?
Obviously, in this story, Mary's going to feel real bad later on. At 6:20 p.m., a telegraph arrived because we still have telegraphs. So a telegraph arrived to the Parker home on South Welton Place, which was less than a mile from the school. The telegraph was addressed to Perry Parker, and it said that his daughter had been kidnapped and to be on the lookout for another telegraph later with a ransom demand. The telegraph ended with, quote, Marion secure, use good judgment, interfere with my plans, dangerous, end quote. They do call the cops. It doesn't say that till later, but the police are involved pretty much from the beginning when Marjorie comes home and Marion's not with her. The next day is December 16th. Perry receives a special delivery letter, and the letter demanded $1,500 in exchange for the safe return of his daughter, which, I did the math on this, in today's money, that would be $27,231.42, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics. So
in today's money, that doesn't seem like a whole lot to go through a kidnapping for.
I mean, somebody did, so...
Yeah.
So the letter goes on to say, quote, fulfilling these terms with the transfer of the currency will secure the return of the girl. Failure to comply with these terms means no one will ever see the girl again except for the angels in heaven. The affair must end one way or another in 3 days, 72 hours. You will receive further notice, end quote. The first telegraph and letter were signed by George Fox, but the later telegrams were signed by the Fox. So I just thought that was weird.
I assume this isn't a real person's name.
No, but pick a fake name and stick with it.
Mm-hmm. I'll sign it. George Fox. Haha, it's clever.
I guess.
Send it. He's walking home. He's like, I should have just said the fox. Sounds so much cooler. The fox.
That's probably what he did. Okay, so obviously the police are involved with the Parkers, and around 2,000 police were working on this case. So, like...
2,000?
2,000.
Wow.
That's a lot.
Yeah. There's no way there's just 2,000 cops in that one city, right?
No, like they had pulled all of Los Angeles. Like they had sent out to like all the states above, the states below, and the states to the side. So like they all had like cops like coming to work on it, but also just like making sure around the borders and stuff that like we don't see you. Because they really didn't know who they were looking for, but they all had a picture of Marion.
Right.
So the police originally told Perry not to make any payments, but more telegrams and phone calls came with the kidnapper threatening to kill Marion unless the ransom was paid. Perry made plans to meet with the kidnapper on 10th Street and Grammar Street in order to exchange the ransom for Marion. The kidnapper realized, though, that Perry was being followed by the police, but obviously, like, he got spooked, so he didn't show. So after that, more letters still continued to come, but one letter had this written from Marion in the bottom. It said, quote, "Dear Daddy and Mother, I wish I could come home. I think I'll die if I have to be like this for much longer. Won't someone tell me why all this had to happen to me? Daddy, please do what this man tells you or he'll kill me if you don't. Your loving daughter, Marion Parker. P.S. Please, Daddy, I want to come home tonight." So that's got to be rough. And like for me, I'd be ticked off if I was Perry because I could have had her if the cops hadn't been like, A, don't pay the ransom, and B, we have to go with you.
You're doing these things over the cost of a new car.
Yeah, exactly.
Not even an expensive new car. It's not worth it. Yeah.
So on the morning of December 17th. So remember, she only got kidnapped a couple days ago. So this has been a short time at least. So on the morning of December 17th, the Parkers received another letter, again demanding the $1,500 for Marion's safe return, and that they said that they had to meet that very same day, but if Perry was followed by police, then Marion would be dead. The meeting was set to be at 7:35 p.m. precisely. The instructions told Perry to leave his home with the money, drive to the corner of 5th Street and Manhattan Place in Los Angeles. The kidnapper said he would pull up next to Mr. Parker's car, show him that Marion was alive, take the money, then drop Marion off 1 block away. And then Perry did not tell the police this time about this communication at all or the planned meeting.
I would say that was smart of him if the police were going to follow him anyway.
Yeah.
If they were like, no, we're going to follow, like, you guys already fucked up.
Yeah, exactly.
So if I'm going to tell you about it and then tell you not to follow me, but you're going to follow me anyway.
Yeah.
I wouldn't tell you about it either.
Exactly. He left his home with the $1,500 in $20 bills. At 7:35 p.m., Perry was at the designated place waiting for the kidnapper. So Chrysler Coupe pulled up beside him, and Marion was seen in the front seat, but she was like completely motionless. The kidnapper had a white handkerchief over his face, and he held up a gun to Mr. Parker and said, "You know what I'm here for. Here is your child. She is sleeping. Give me the money and follow instructions." Mr. Parker handed the kidnapper the money, and the Chrysler drove up 1 block with Mr. Perry following behind him so he could get his daughter. Okay. The kidnapper opened the door and pushed Marion out into the lawn. Perry immediately ran up to Marion, but he was horrified at what he saw. Marion had been killed, and then he starts screaming, obviously, and then passerbys start calling the police because they don't really know what's happening, but obviously it's not good.
Something's wrong.
Yeah. This is where it gets a little rough.
I'm already at this piece of shit.
So Marion's body had been mutilated, and her body was wrapped in towels, and her legs had been cut off close up to her torso, and her arms had also been cut off right at the joints, and then her body had been stuffed with rags, and then her eyes, her eyelids, had been sewed open with black wire, to keep them open, and then she had it's like a metal piece of wire tied really tightly around her neck. While police began their investigation, they unwrap her body of the towels, obviously. And then one of the towels had a name of an apartment complex on it. The towel was from the Bellevue Arms Apartments. So the police go to this complex and find out it only has 88 units. Starting out at 88, that's decent to okay, we can talk to them.
It's not horrible odds, yeah.
Exactly. But they end up just talking to the owner of the complex, and they give him the kidnapper's description. And from both Marjorie and from what Perry said, because Perry saw him. I mean, he had a handkerchief over his face, but still he did see him.
Yeah, and the other daughter saw him.
Yeah. the owner said that it could be one of his tenants that lived in 315, which I also am curious, if there's only 88 units, why is one of them 315?
Yeah, I don't know. Let's have 1 through 88.
I know, like, that would have made more sense, but whatever. The landlord ends up identifying the man as Donald Evans. So the police find out that Donald is a false name, and that the man's real name is William Edward Hickman. And then Hickman is a 19-year-old from Missouri. So we're going to go back a tiny bit and give you a little bit of Hickman's background so you understand how he even knew who Perry Parker was.
Okay.
Okay. So in June of 1927, so 6 months prior to all of this, Hickman was arrested for trying to pass a forged check. He tried to pass this check at the bank where he worked, which was also the First National Trust and Savings Bank, where Perry Parker was the main guy. Mm-hmm. So Hickman was found guilty of, like, trying to pass the forged check, and then he was sent to jail. And when he was in jail, he was informed that he no longer worked at the bank. And then when Hickman was released, he went back to the bank and he begged Perry Parker for his job back, but Parker wouldn't allow him. And so Hickman tried to get a job at another bank, but when they called Perry Parker for a reference, he did not speak highly of Hickman, so he obviously was denied that job as well.
You forged a check, man.
Yeah.
You work at a bank, you forged a check. You're not going to work at a bank anymore.
I know.
Yeah.
So after Hickman was denied the new job at the bank, he ended up moving back to Missouri, and specifically Kansas City, Missouri. And this is where he robbed a couple of their car, the Chrysler Coupe. Hickman then drove that Chrysler all the way back to Los Angeles, where he began looking for an apartment.
Why not just rob a car in Los Angeles?
I thought, well, to be fair, in the 20s, it seems like they didn't talk out interstate unless it was, like, something really important.
Oh, right, yeah.
And, like, we went all the way back home, so who knows? Maybe he wanted to go see someone in his family and thought, this car looks cool. So he stole the car, drove back to Los Angeles, and that's when he began to look for an apartment. He found this apartment complex, and then he requested a quiet apartment in the back of the complex, so they gave him apartment 315. When police entered his apartment, like, he was already gone. Like, clearly he knew that he was going to get in trouble, so he was out. But they did actually find a lot of evidence in his apartment. They found fingerprints that matched the fingerprints on the ransom note as well as the ones in the Chrysler, so they could easily tie him to A, you stole this car, and B, you sent this ransom letter. So, like, they already had that. And then a specifically odd piece of, like, evidence that they found was half of a Brazil nut. And this is only odd because the other half of the Brazil nut was found in Marion's dress pocket. And, like, when you put them back together, they matched perfectly.
It just proves that she was there.
Yeah, exactly.
There's evidence that she was there in that apartment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, like I said, they had over 2,000 officers working on this case. And then they had tips coming in from, like, all over. Like, there was a couple from Iowa, Kansas, Missouri, and Nevada specifically. And then there was, like, of possible sightings of him.
Which is as he's traveling back through
Potentially.
the country. Potentially, yeah.
Potentially. And so, obviously, they're, like, having to go track down all these people. And then 20 men were brought in from December 19th to the 20th because they all resembled Hickman in some way. But Hickman made it all the way to Seattle by December 21st. So on December 21st, he was checking out with a clerk at, like, a grocery store, and he used one of the $20 bills he'd got from the kidnapping. Okay, so the clerk recognized him because at that point, his face was in every newspaper ever, like, all up and down the coast, everywhere.
Yeah. This is probably not nearly as common then as it is now.
Yeah, and, like, everyone says this was gruesome for them. It's still gruesome for now.
Yeah, it's just gruesome, period. Yeah.
But, like, it was especially shocking in 27. But anyways, the clerk called the authorities, and by the time that they got there, Hickman was already gone, because obviously he was checking out at the time. And he'd already stolen another car by then, because obviously he left the Chrysler because they had fingerprints in it.
Yeah.
So on December 22nd, he was driving near the border of Oregon and Washington when the police recognized the stolen car, and then they, like, pulled him over, and he actually just pulled over fine.
So he's still going north.
Yeah, he was still.
He's probably going to Canada.
That's what I thought he was trying to get to Canada. And in the car, the police found $1,400 left from the ransom. Hickman's words when he was arrested were, quote, "Well, I guess it's all over," end quote. Yeah, and then right away he did admit to the kidnapping, but not the murder.
Yeah, it's obvious though you did both.
Well, yeah, somebody he tries to blame it on.
Okay.
So he claimed that he had two accomplices, and one of which his name is Andrew Kramer. However, Andrew was in jail the time of his kidnapping and murder, and the time of the kidnapping and murder. So that was already ruled out.
How did he know Andrew Kramer?
He met him when he was in jail 6 months ago.
Okay.
So I'm like, I guess maybe he thought, hey, that guy will already be out. I'll blame it on him. But he still wasn't out yet. So.
Yeah.
During Hickman's confession, like, he insisted that it was not an act of revenge against Mr. Parker and that he just truly wanted the money to go to college.
He didn't just want to go to college. He wanted revenge, but he didn't just want revenge because revenge would just be kill her.
Yeah, I know.
No, he tortured her.
Hickman said that he would have gone straight and not offended again if he had just gotten the money and got to go off to college.
Bullshit.
I know.
It's bullshit because you would have... No. If they would just let me get away with this one crime, I would quit doing crimes. No, fuck you. What do you expect? If it was your $1,500, someone tried to forge a check or whatever, you would say no.
Here's where we get his account of what actually happened. Once he gives a little more... Once he's willing to talk.
Yeah.
Hickman did finally say that he strangled Marion with a towel because he was afraid that she would make noise. In his written confession, he said, quote, "I knew that if I refused to take her back Saturday morning, she might distrust me enough to give some sign which would cause my discovery. Yet I felt that if I did take her back in the daylight, I might fall in a trap and be caught. So in order to go through with my plans enough to get the money and to keep Marion from ever knowing while she lived that I would disappoint her confidence in me, I killed her so suddenly and unexpectedly as she passed beyond consciousness so quickly and unexpectedly that she never had a fear or thought of her own death. Then, in order to get her out of my apartment without notice, I was prompted after she was beyond consciousness to dissect her body," end quote.
That's possibly true.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I buy it. Given what we know that did happen, I hope that's the way it happened.
Yeah. Hickman goes on to discuss that he realized that in order to get the ransom money, he would have to make her look alive. So that's why he stuffed her body with towels, and then that's why he sewed her eyelids open. All right, so you ready to hear his sentence? Because he did just end up pleading guilty. So Hickman was sentenced to death, where he would serve his time in San Quentin on death row. He was sent to the gallows on October 19th of 1928, where he was executed for his crimes.
Doesn't take long in the 20s.
It did not. Literally, because he by the time he confessed, like, it was right around New Year's Day-ish timeline-wise. But you didn't even last a full year in death row in the 20s. But, they hung him on 1928. Less than a year.
When the evidence is this obvious and you have the confession too.
Yep.
I mean.
And Hickman was 20 years old when he died. There are no accounts of what happened to him in San Quentin other than this is when he died. But that is the terrible, awful story of what happened to Marion Parker.
It really is. That's awful. I hate people like this.
Me too.
Anyway, if you enjoyed the video, give us a thumbs up, leave us a comment, let us know if you've got any kind of stories that you'd like to hear, anything that happened to you personally you'd like us to talk about. We'd love to hear those stories. Anything paranormal, murdery, mystery. Yeah. Murdery, mystery.
I like it. I like murdery and mystery.
Murdery, mystery, anything like that.
Yeah.
Leave a comment, let us know. Don't forget to subscribe. And on Spotify.
5-star reviews. And also let us know if you like me telling the story or Alex telling the story, because we can trade off more often if you guys want more of him. Okay, bye.
No, I didn't say this is the part where Chris says bye. You can't. No. I didn't say the thing yet.
Okay, fine. Say the thing.
All right, this is the part where Kirsten says bye.
Okay, bye.